The White Unicorn, Bedtime Short Stories for Kids, a collection of fantasy and classic stories with 101 positive affirmations to help children fall asleep and relax. Aesop's Fables and Fairy Tales, written by Martha Shannon, narrated by Tippy Robinson and Dona Jackson. Part 1. Bedtime Stories for Kids.
Little Fir Tree. A long time ago stood a little fir tree, thin, pointy, and dazzling, that was in a mid of so many large fir trees, thick and offering a green shadow at the tremendous and fantastic forest. The little fir tree was not so large as the others, and this made him very unhappy and sad. When birds arrived flying into the woods and set up their nests on the trunks of large trees, he usually called them up. "Come down, please come down, and have a rest at my branches." But more often than not do they respond saying, "Oh, no, no, you're not old enough." And when it came to the wind, it blew splendidly throughout the entire vast forest, accompanied with a lovely singing, as it turned and bent the tops of the large trees and whispered to them mellowly. It is then that the little fir tree stares up and cries out to the wind, "Oh, my dear one, kindly come down to me, and let's play together." However, he always said, "Oh no, you are too small, you are too small." And white snow came down soft and smooth in winter, covering the big trees with beautiful caps and white caps, close up on the cover of the other people. Little Fir Tree pleaded with the snow to be kind enough to shower his snow as well. The snow often said, "No, oh no, no, you are too small, you are too small, you are too small." Come summertime, the little fir tree still felt left out. The sun will shine so bright and offer warmth to die for, which this little man would not get, since the branches of the big trees overshadowed his chance of getting the celebrated sun among the others. He called out, just as always, "Come down, the dear sun, please, I beg of you." The little fir tree cried out loudly, "I would play with you just as you do with the big trees." And yet again he gets the same devastating response. "Oh no, 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 little one, ain't you too young for that? I can't come down to play with you, my dear small fir tree." The worst of everything was when people with sliding and horse teams came into the wood. The men came down to the forest to chop down the towering trees and carry them back along. And after one was chopped down and dragged far away from the forest, the others spoke and shook their heads with a lot of enthusiasm, hoping they will be the next ones to face the axe. The little fir tree listened to the other trees as they talked on how once you're cut and taken away, you could turn into the master of a great ship, go far across the sea, and experience marvelous things. Or you might be used to make a beautiful house in a big city and see much life. Who wouldn't want to be part of something this large that seemed so cute and incredible to be part of? The little fir tree wished to be part of the enormous transformation that all the other trees got an opportunity to be in. However, he was always considered to be a tiny tree. In fact, the men hardly noticed him, since they passed him without even glancing towards his side. But as the days went by, one cold morning during winter, the men with sleds and horses made their rounds as usual, chopping trees one corner, and finally, one of them stood where the small tree was growing, as he threw glances all around that area. "There are no more trees that are little enough," they said, after looking around for some time. Oh, 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 oh! The little fir tree felt some way, and he picked up his needles. "Could this be the day I've been longing for?" he thought to himself. "Hey, over here!" one of the men called out. "Here's one," pointing at the little fir tree as he touched his branches. Oh my, oh my! Wasn't this the most fabulous day of this little champ life? He was happy as a bird as it dawned down at him that he was about to be cut down. His mind wandered all over the place as he was being carried away on the sled from the forest, which seemed like an eternity to him. So satisfied, he wondered if being the mast of a ship would be a better idea, as opposed to being crafted into a beautiful modern house. However, as they approached the city, the little fir tree was taken outside and placed vertically in a tub at the pavement in a straight line alongside other fir trees, though they were also small, but not as little as he. And at this point, that the little fir tree realized the reality of the situation. Many individuals gathered around to observe the trees, and if there was one that pleased the eye, they took them along. But they always shook their heads when they saw the little fir tree and said, "That's too small." At last, two kids went walking together came by and stared at the little fir trees with attention. Then they yelled out, "We'll hold on to this one. It's little enough, just perfect." Immediately, when they laid their eyes on the little fir tree, they picked him up from his tub and brought him along with them, him being in the middle of the two children. And little fir tree, who's delighted, devoted all his time wondering what they meant by he was just little enough. By now, it was for sure clear to him that he was not going to be either a mast or a beautiful house in the busy city as he had left with young children. As they carried him through some massive doors, he was curious as to what they would do with him. The children set him by the table in a dark, empty room and back to another tub. They quickly left, and returned with a large basket carried between them. They were outstanding. Sooner than later, some beautiful women came and brought little parcels. They were all dressed in blue clothes under their white apron with white caps on the heads. The kids took stuff from the basket and started placing with little Fir Tree. On his head and his leaves, together with his branches, were being softly touched and played around with by these amazing kids. And when he got the opportunity to stare down at himself, as far as possible as he could, he got to see the silver and gold chains hanging down his branches. The white strings fell around him with their fluffy stuff. Its twigs contained tiny golden nuts, pink balls, and silver stars. Its hands were quite tiny, black and white. And the kids put a lovely white doll angel on his head, finally and most marvelously. For happiness and wonder, the small tree was unable to breathe. It was such a fantastic moment, he couldn't believe the pleasure he felt. Now, what was he? He wondered. Why did all this feel like glory and victory to him? Everybody left him after a moment. It became dark, and through its locked doors, the small fir tree started hearing weird noises. He listened to a kid weeping at some point. He started feeling as if he was placed in a solitary. It became increasingly dark. The doors opened all at once, and the two kids came running into the room. They were accompanied by two of the beautiful women. They gently approached the little fir tree and hastily lit up all the white and pink candles. Then both the beautiful women took the little fir tree and dragged it out of doors, holding on to the table firmly, across the hallway and into another door with exceptional smoothness and quick feet. The little fir tree was caught by surprise from the sight of a very elongated room with numerous little beds spread with white sheets, of kids carefully placed up on pillows in the beds. There were other kids in wheelchairs, and others just merely fooling around the space, or quietly just sitting in their tiny chairs. He was astonished to why all the little munchkins in the room all looked tired and weary. He had no idea that he was in a hospital. But his mind stopped wandering for a while as the small children shouted with excitement in seeing him. This took his breath away. "Oh, oh, 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 they yelled out. "How lovely! It is beautiful." He realized they referred to him because they looked directly at him with all their shiny eyes. Now, a fragile child speaker is shouting, "It's the most beautiful Christmas tree I have ever seen." And then, finally, Little Fur realized what he was. He was a tree for Christmas, and he was happy through and through from his bright head to his feet, because he was only little enough to be the most beautiful type of tree on earth. He let all this happiness sink in deep down his trunk. He couldn't believe that a bunch of kids found joy in him. Indeed, all the waiting to come out of the vast forest was all worth it. The thought of being a large mast or be part of a building somewhere in town was of no importance. Getting to see these sickly kids afford a smile when they saw him lighted up his heart. He wanted to be nowhere but there. He had met people who made him feel part of something. Even as little as it may look, it was more than what he had ever wished for. The Brahmin, the Tiger, and the Jackal. Is it possible that you might have an idea of what a Brahmin is? A Brahmin is a nice, caring, and gentle kind of human being who is living in Asia and who cares and treats all the beasts as if they were part of his family. There is much more about Brahmins that you need to know. However, that is sufficient enough to tell this tale. It was a bright day, and Brahmin was strolling down along a rough road when he stumbled upon a tiger, who was shut up and locked in a powerful iron cage. For his evil doing, the villagers captured him and shut him up there. "Ah, there you are, Brahmin brother, Brahmin my brother," the tiger said. "I beg you to kindly cut me loose so that I can get a drink. I am dying of thirst. My throat is completely dry. I need to quench this thirst, but the problem is the scarcity of water is high in this area." "But brother tiger," Brahmin uttered, "I do understand. The moment I let you go, you did jump over me and tear my flesh apart as you enjoy eating me up." "Don't trouble yourself, Brahmin," Tiger said. "I would never do something so inconsiderate and out of this world like that. Let me just come out and drink for a few minutes, brother Brahmin, a little sip of water." After which, Brahmin opened the cage, letting out the tiger. He sprang on the Brahmin as soon as he was out and was about to consume him. "And yet you swore you would not eat me, brother tiger," Brahmin said. "It is unfair and unreasonable for you to want to eat me up just when I have let you loose. I don't find anything wrong with that for me. It's just and fair." "I will feed you until my tummy swells up," said the tiger. The Brahmin, however, strongly disputed with the tiger's reasoning, and he succeeded in convincing him to invite the first 5 opinions from the ones whom they will encounter and ask them if it is okay for you to eat me when I have just freed you from the cage. Their first question went to an ancient fruit tree, which was famously known as banyan. By the side of the road, it was the first thing they came in contact with. "Brother Banyan," Brahmin said anxiously, "does it sound right and just to you that this tiger should go ahead and eat me even after I agreed to release him from his cage?" The fruit tree looked down at the two and said to them fatiguingly. He said, "During the summer, when the sun is high and scorching down at humanity, men set themselves to sit under my shade to cool off and pick up fruits off my branches that act as refreshments to them. However, as the day comes to an end, with the sun going down, giving rise to a beautiful sunset, and they are well rested, they shatter my twigs, toss all over my leaves, and they throw stones at my boughs to get more fruits. Men are unappreciative beings. Go on, tiger. Eat the Brahmin. He jumped with anticipation to feed on Brahmin, though yet again the Brahmin was able to save his skin from being ripped apart and said, "Wait, just wait for a second, tiger. We've only gotten the opinion of one. 4 more to ask." As they walked down the road, they bumped into an aged bullock resting at the side of the pathway. "Brother Bullock, oh Brother Bullock, do you think it's reasonable to you that this tiger ought to eat me up after I've just set him free from a cage?" The Brahmin moved up to him and asked. The bullock stared up. With a profound groaning, he replied, "When I was young and full of energy, the master made use of me to the maximum, and throughout my youthful days, I served him diligently to my last strength. I took on heavy loads and carried them quite a distance. Since I'm old and weakly now and can't be fully functional as back then, he leaves me to die by the side of the road without any food or water. Men are just a bunch of individuals who are unappreciative. The tiger can feed on the Brahmin." The tiger sprang towards Brahmin, but he was quick to speak for himself and said, "Oh, my brother tiger, but we have just gotten the second opinion. We agreed to hear from 5. The tiger grouched a big deal. However, he finally proceeded down the road together. After a while, an eagle came flying over their heads. Brahmin pleadingly, "Oh, Brother Eagle, does it sound reasonable and just to you that the tiger should tear into my flesh and have a piece of me, and am from rescuing him out of the horrendous cage that he was held captive?" The eagle gently rose high in the sky over our heads for a couple of minutes, then came down and spoke with a thin, definite tone. He said, "I dwell high in the sky, and I do no damage to people. Whenever and wherever they come across my eyrie, they throw stones to my young ones and steal from my nest, and if that's not enough, they go ahead and shoot at me with their killer arrows. Men are a vicious race. Let the Brahmin be torn into pieces by the tiger." The tiger jumped over to Brahmin to feed on him. This time around, it was not an easy pie. He had a very difficult time convincing him to wait just a little bit longer, but he finally persuaded him, and they continued together. They spotted an ancient alligator, his body halfway covered on the brink of the river in mud and slime. "Brother alligator, oh, brother alligator, said the Brahmin. "Isn't it unfair and unjust? The tiger wants to eat me, and I did him a favor just a while ago by freeing him from the cage he was held in." The aging alligator rolled around the messy ground. Then he said, "Throughout my life, I lie here in the mud all day long, as harmless as a pigeon. I neither hunt nor hurt any being. Nevertheless, when man spots me, he throws rocks at me, pricks me with sharp objects, and sneers at me. Men are a wicked lot. I support tiger. Eat the Brahmin." Hearing such comments and thoughts from the alligator, he was now more willing to pounce on Brahmin. The frightened Brahmin had to keep telling him time after time that only 4 had been asked. Wait until one more has been asked. Kindly wait for the fifth opinion, he pleaded mercifully. The tiger went on with him finally. They encountered Little Jackal after a while, as he came down to the direction they were coming cheerfully. "Oh, dear Jackal brother," Brahmin said, "offer us your view. Oh, brother Jackal, do you believe that this tiger should consume me when I released him from the awful cage?" "I beg your pardon?" Little Jackal said. "What I'm saying," said the Brahmin with a higher pitch voice, "do you believe it is reasonable or even right for the tiger to feed on me? And I did let him out of his cage." "Cage? Did you say cage?" the Little Jackal said, hollow. Brahmin said, "Yes, yeah, his cage. If you don't mind, we would like your view. Do you think—" "Oh," Jackal said, "you did love to get my opinion, huh? Well, I do beg of you to speak up more audible kindly and a little louder and clarify the issue at hand more clearly. I'm a little short at comprehending things easily. You need to be patient with me. Okay, now tell me what the problem is." "What is your take on tiger wanting to eat me, and I did save him from the wrath of the villagers who had kept him shut in a cage?" asked Brahmin. "What is this cage you are talking about?" inquired Little Jackal. The Brahmin replied, "Why are you interested in the cage that he was in?" "Look here," said Little Jackal, "what am I not understanding altogether about this situation is that you say you did set him free, is that right?" Yes, I sure did set him loose," said Brahmin. "This is how the events of the day unfolded. I was walking down the road, minding my own business, when I saw this tiger, locked up in the cage, treated by the villagers as if he was some wild beast." "Oh, dear, dear, dear," the Little Jackal interrupted while shaking his head with concern. "I wouldn't be able to see through all this if you keep going on with your lengthy narration. If you want to hear my view on the matter, you need to be clear and precise to the point." "What type of cage was he held in?" asked the Little Jackal. "Why," asked the Brahmin, "it was a large, normal cage made out of iron." The small Jackal said, "That provides me with no clue at all. Look here, dear friend, if at all I were able to help in any way about, let's go to the exact place where all this happened. Only then would I be able to understand in a jiffy. So let's go, so that you can both show me the cage." They all headed towards the original place they met. The Little Jackal said, "Let us wrap our heads around this situation. Brahmin, when you reached here, where were you?" The Brahmin said, "I was standing right there by the side of the road." "What about the tiger? Where were you at this moment?" said the Little Jackal. "Why are you asking a million questions? Of course I was locked in the cage," the tiger roared. "Oh, forgive me, father of all, Mr. Tiger," uttered the small Jackal. "I am so silly. I can't quite comprehend what occurred here. If you have some patience, do you mind demonstrating how you were locked in the cage? In which position were you in?" "I was standing there," pointed the tiger, springing in the cage, "with my shoulders elevated and my head even higher." "Oh, thank you, stated the small Jackal in a sarcastic tone. "You have made it much clearer now, but I still don't get it. I'm sorry. Please forgive my slow mind. Were you able to get out by yourself?" "Is it that it is hard for you to see once you're inside the cage you're locked?" growled the tiger. The Little Jackal said, "Oh, Excuse me, please. By now, I bet you have realized just how slow I am. Unless I see just how things were, I'll never understand well. But if you can demonstrate to me precisely how that gate opens, I will really appreciate it. I can comprehend, I'm sure. How do you go about the cage door? The Brahmin said while pushing in the door. It shuts like this. Yes, I can see that, said the little jackal. But I can hardly see any lock. Is it that it locks from the outside or what? The Brahmin said, It appears like this. And he went ahead and closed the gate. Oh, actually does it? Said Small Jackal. Indeed, it does. Okay, Brother Brahmin, I should recommend you to let the gate of the cage remain closed now that it is shut. Tiger, my brother, you will remain locked in for a long time before someone else frees you again. Then he bowed eloquently low to the Brahmin. Farewell, my brother, he said. That is your direction, and this is my direction. Goodbye.
The Hare and the Tortoise. The hare was once boasting of his speed before the other animals. I have never yet been beaten, he said. When I put forth my full speed, I challenge anyone here to race with me. The tortoise said quietly, I accept your challenge. That is a good joke, said the hare. I could dance around you all the way. Keep your boasting till you've beaten me, answered the tortoise. Shall we race? So a course was fixed and a start was made. The hare darted out of sight at once, but soon stopped and, believing the tortoise could never catch him, lay down by the wayside to have a nap. The tortoise never for a moment stopped, but went on with a slow but steady pace, straight to the end of the course. When the hare awoke from his nap, he saw the tortoise just nearing the winning post. The hare ran as fast as he could, but it was too late. He saw the tortoise had reached the goal. Then said the tortoise, Slow and steady wins the race. The Ant and the Grasshopper. In a field one summer's day, a grasshopper was hopping about, chirping and singing to its heart's content. An ant passed by, bearing along with great toil and head of wheat he was taking to the nest. Why not come and chat with me, said the grasshopper, instead of toiling and moiling in that way. I'm helping to lay up food for the winter, said the ant, and recommend you do the same. Why bother with winter, said the grasshopper. We've got plenty of food at present. But the ant went on its way and continued its toil. When the winter came, the grasshopper had no food and found itself cold and very hungry, while it saw the ants distributing every day corn and grain from the stores they had collected in the summer. Then the grasshopper knew. It is best to prepare for the days of necessity. The Fox and the Crow. A fox once saw a crow fly off with a piece of cheese in its beak and settle on a branch of a tree. That is for me, as I am a fox, said Master Reynard, and he walked up to the foot of the tree. Good day, Mistress Crow, he cried. How well you are looking today. How glossy your feathers, how bright your eye! I feel sure your voice must surpass that of other birds, just as your figure does. Let me hear but one song from you, that I may greet you as the queen of birds." The crow lifted up her head and began to caw her best. But the moment she opened her mouth, the piece of cheese fell to the ground, only to be snapped up by Master Fox. "That will do," he said. "That was all I wanted. In exchange for your cheese, I will give you a piece of advice for the future. Do not trust flatterers." The Lion and the Mouse. Once when a lion was asleep, a little mouse began running up and down upon him. This soon wakened the lion, who placed his huge paw upon him and opened his big jaws to swallow him. "Pardon, O king," cried the little mouse. "Forgive me this time. I shall never forget it. Who knows but what I may be able to do you a turn some of these days?" The lion was so tickled at the idea of a mouse being able to help him that he lifted up his paw and let him go. Some time after, the lion was caught in a trap, and the hunters who desired to carry him alive to the king tied him to a tree while they went in search of a wagon to carry him on. Just then, the little mouse happened to pass by, and seeing the sad plight in which the lion was, went up to him and soon gnawed away the ropes that bound the king of the beasts. "Was I not right?" said the little mouse. Little friends may prove great friends. The Fox and the Grapes. One hot summer's day, a fox was strolling through an orchard till he came to a bunch of grapes just ripening on a vine, which had been trained over a lofty branch. "Just the thing to quench my thirst," quoth he. Drawing back a few paces, he took a run and a jump, and just missed the bunch. Turning around again, with a 1, 2, 3, he jumped up, but with no greater success. Again and again he tried after the tempting morsel, but at last he had to give it up, and walked away with his nose in the air, saying, "I am sure they are sour." It is easy to despise what you cannot get. The Cat Maiden. The gods were once disputing whether it was possible for a living being to change its nature. Jupiter said yes, but Venus said no. So, to try the question, Jupiter turned a cat into a maiden and gave her to a young man for a wife. The wedding was duly performed, and the young couple sat down to the wedding feast. "See," said Jupiter to Venus, "how becoming she behaves. Who could tell that yesterday she was but a cat? Surely her nature is changed." "Wait a minute," replied Venus, and let loose a mouse into the room. No sooner did the bride see this than she jumped up from her seat and tried to pounce upon the mouse. "Ah, you see," said Venus. "True nature will come out." The Bundle of Sticks. An old man on the point of death summoned his sons around him to give them some parting advice. He ordered his servants to bring a bundle of sticks and said to his eldest son, "Break it." The son strained and strained, but with all of his efforts was unable to break the bundle. The other sons also tried, but none of them was successful. "Untie the bundle," said the father, "and each of you take a stick." When they had done so, he called out to them, "Now, break." And each stick was easily broken. "You see my meaning?" said their father. Union gives strength. The Crow and the Pitcher. A thirsty crow came upon a pitcher, which had been full of water. But when the crow put its beak into the mouth of the pitcher, he found that it was only half full, and that he could not reach far enough down to get at the remaining water. He tried and he tried, but at last he had to give up in despair. Then a thought came to him, and he took a pebble and dropped it into the pitcher. Then he took another pebble and dropped it into the pitcher. Then he took another pebble and dropped that into the pitcher. At last, after many pebbles, he saw the water mount up near him, and after casting in a few more pebbles, he was able to quench his thirst. Little by little does the trick. The Fisher and the Little Fish. It happened that a fisher, after fishing all day, caught only a little fish. "Pray let me go, master," said the fish. "I am much too small for your eating just now. If you put me back into the river, I shall soon grow. Then you can make a fine meal off me." "Nay, nay, my little fish," said the fisher. "I have you now. I may not catch you hereafter." A little thing in hand is worth more than a great thing in prospect. Part 2. Positive Affirmations for Kids.